progress on containing global warming remains minimal. The progress in limiting global warming has been minimal. The world is still on track for a dangerous increase in global temperatures, with projections suggesting a rise of 2.7 degrees Celsius by 2100. This increase is far above the 1.5 degrees Celsius threshold established by the Paris Agreement, which aimed to prevent the most catastrophic effects of climate change. Despite global awareness and efforts to reduce carbon emissions, the gap between the current trajectory and the goals set in Paris remains alarmingly wide. Since 2021, little has changed in terms of climate action. Even in the most optimistic scenarios, global warming is expected to reach 1.9 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. This projection reflects a stark contrast to the urgent measures needed to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, the target set by scientists to avoid irreversible damage to ecosystems and human livelihoods. A rise of 2.7 degrees Celsius would have catastrophic consequences, including more frequent and severe heat waves, rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and disruptions to food and water security. One of the key challenges in addressing climate change is the continued reliance on fossil fuels, which remain a major driver of global warming. Despite efforts to transition to cleaner energy sources, subsidies for fossil fuels have reached record levels. The financing of fossil fuel projects has seen a dramatic increase from 2021 to 2022, with subsidies for these industries growing fourfold. This surge in funding undermines efforts to curb emissions and transition to renewable energy, as it encourages the continued extraction and burning of coal, oil, and gas. The paradox of increasing fossil fuel subsidies while simultaneously advocating for climate action highlights the complexity of the issue. Many governments continue to support fossil fuel industries, citing economic factors, job creation, and energy security. However, these short-term benefits come at the expense of long-term sustainability. The continued dependence on fossil fuels not only exacerbates global warming, but also diverts resources away from investing in renewable energy technologies, which are essential for reducing emissions and achieving climate goals. The growth in fossil fuel subsidies is especially troubling given the urgent need for investment in clean energy infrastructure. Governments around the world have pledged to reduce their carbon footprints and accelerate the transition to renewable energy. But the financial support for fossil fuels is counteracting these efforts. The COVID-19 pandemic and subsequent economic recovery efforts have also contributed to the increased funding of fossil fuel projects, as governments seek to stimulate economic growth in the wake of the global recession. At the same time, there has been a growing recognition of the need to address climate change in a holistic manner, taking into account not just emissions reductions, but also adaptation and resilience. Climate change is already affecting communities around the world, particularly those in vulnerable regions, and it is clear that efforts to mitigate global warming must be complemented by strategies for adapting to its inevitable impacts. However, the current pace of progress remains insufficient, and the continued reliance on fossil fuels only increases the risks of further damage to the planet and its inhabitants. The world is still far from meeting the targets set by the Paris Agreement, and the minimal progress made since 2021 is concerning. The continued rise in fossil fuel subsidies exacerbates the problem, undermining efforts to transition to cleaner energy sources and limit global warming. Without stronger commitments to reduce fossil fuel dependence and invest in renewable energy, the world is on track to experience a dangerous rise in temperatures that will have widespread and irreversible consequences for the planet. The time for action is now, and it is critical that governments, industries, and individuals work together to confront the climate crisis before it is too late.